culture is like, your son's job is to help take care of me. But he says, Mom, I can't really take care of you if I don't have a decent job. So all the time, you can imagine having to push back against your mother saying, quit high school, go get a job. Quit college, go get a job. Here's his comments on what types of jobs he would work. Because, as I said, he really didn't financially come into any financial prominence until the last decade of his life. He was 65 when he died. But he would take different types of jobs. He read a lot. As I said, his mother introduced him to theater, his mother introduced him to the library, and that, like most people, that's one place he could get lost in books. And he knew the world through books. After he graduated from high school and did his year at Columbia, he said, I want to travel. So he took his books, and basically he would work in the kitchen on a ship. I don't think they call it the Merchant Marine, but it was, I think it was 1920, 1930. So it was rough and tumble, but they pretty much knew he held his own, and he didn't drink, didn't smoke, didn't mess around with women the first time he went out, but they kind of accepted him for it. But it was just pretty much a pittance that he would get paid. And he traveled to China, he traveled to Russia and come back. He traveled to England and come back. So he just sail out on a ship, do menial work, then come back. When he was back in the United States, again, sometimes he would have to take menial work, and like I said, until he got to the late 40s and 50s. But again, this is called Elevator Boy, and this was written in the 1930s. I got a job now, running an elevator in a Denison hotel in Jersey. Job ain't no good, though. No money around. Jobs are just like chances. Like everything else. Maybe a little luck now, maybe not. Maybe a good job sometimes. Step out on that barrel, boy. 2 new suits and a woman to sleep with. Maybe no luck for a long time. Only the elevators going up and down, up and down. Or somebody else's shoes to shine. Or greasy pots in a dirty kitchen. I've been running this elevator too long. Guess I'll quit now. He just figured it's a menial job, I'll find another one. But just as long as he had time to write, that was important to him. In the mid-30s, he met a woman that wanted to be his patron. Her name was Charlotte Mason. And she was also patron of Zora Neale Hurston. She insisted that they call her godmother. At first, she would financially support them, but after, and that was a period like for 7 or 8 years, after a while, she started telling them what they should write in their poems. Well, bring your poems to me. Let me read them. Well, why don't you change that line to this? Why don't you change that to that? And he would also pit Zora Neale Hurston against Langston Hughes. So again, 1930s, things are difficult enough. This is entitled Poet to Patron. What right has anyone to say that I must throw out pieces of my heart for pay? For bread that helps to make my heart beat true, I must sell myself to you? A factory shift's better, a week's meager pay, than a perfume note asking, what poems today? Again, as I said, he's willing to take anything better, but don't mess with his mind and his heart, which is from where his poems come from. Again, another reflection on who he was as a poet. This is entitled Words Like Freedom. There are words like freedom, sweet and wonderful to say. On my heartstring, freedom sings, all day, every day. There are words like liberty, almost make me cry. If you had known what I know, you would know why. Again, as I said, Langston Hughes was looking at society around him. When he first had been reading about New York, when he was living in the Midwest between Kansas and Ohio, he just knew when I get to New York, I'm going to see all the major actors and all the major musicians. I'm going to go down the street and I'm going to see them all. And this was like a week before he went to Columbia. He got to Harlem and realized, I don't see nobody. I don't know anybody. But he was still thrilled with being in Harlem. I'm sorry. I didn't look behind me.
no, go down left hand to your left.
Yeah.
There you go. That one.
Slide check. Now you gonna,
Yeah.
do you need this one?
This is Langston Hughes looking at the blues. The weary blues. Droning a drowsy, syncopated tune. Rocking back and forth to a mellow croon. I heard a Negro play down on Lenox Avenue the other night. By the pale door pallor of an old gas light, he did a lazy sway. He did a lazy sway to the tune of those old weary blues. With his ebony hands on the ivory keys, he made that poor piano moan with the melody. Oh, blues! Swaying to and fro on his rickety stool, he played that sad, raggedy tune like a musical fool. Sweet blues, coming from the black man's soul. Oh, blues! In a deep song voice with a melancholy tune, I heard that Negro sing and that old piano moan. I ain't got nobody in all this world. I ain't got nobody but myself. I'm gonna quit my frowning and put my troubles on the shelf. When his foot on the floor, he played a few chords and he sang some more. I got the weary blues, and I can't be satisfied. I got the weary blues, and I can't be satisfied. I ain't happy no more, and I wish I died. Far into the night, he crooned that tune. The stars went out, and so did the moon. The singer stopped playing and went to bed, while the weary blues echoed through his head. He slept like a rock, or a man that's dead. The Weary Blues. Another blues poem, To Midnight Nan at Leroy's. Strut and wiggle, shameless gal, wouldn't no good fellow be your pal. Hear that music, jungle night. Hear that music, and the moon was white. Sing your blues song, pretty baby. You want loving, and you don't mean maybe. Jungle lover, night black boy, two against the moon, and the moon was joy. Strut and wiggle, shameless Nan, won't no good fella be your man. Evening Air Blues. Folks, I come up north because they told me the north was fine. I come up north because they told me the north was fine. Been up here 6 months, and I'm about to lose my mind. This morning for breakfast, I chawed the morning air. This morning for breakfast, chawed the morning air. But this evening for supper, I got some evening air to spare. Believe I'll do a little dancing just to drive my blues away. A little dancing to drive my blues away. Because when I'm dancing, the blues forget to stay. But if you want to ask me how the blues they came to be, says if you want to ask me how the blues they came to be, You won't need to ask me. Just look at me and see. One more is Young Gal Blues. I'm going to walk to the graveyard, hide my friend, Miss Cora Lee. Going to walk to the graveyard, hide my friend, Miss Cora Lee. Because when I'm dead, somebody will have to walk behind me. I'm going to the pole house to see my old Aunt Clou. Going to the pole house to see my old Aunt Clou. When I'm old and ugly, I want somebody to see too. The pole house is lonely and the grave is cold. Oh, the pole house is lonely and the graveyard grave is cold. But I'd rather be dead than to be ugly and old. When love is gone, what can a young gal do? When love is gone, oh, what can a young gal do? Keep on loving me, Daddy, because I don't want to be blue. Again, like I said, Langston Hughes, he studied life. He studied characters that he came in touch with. And he was known for doing jazz and blues poems, doing it in a syncopated rhythm as you read them. Another thing of him looking at life being a study of people, he came up with some other characters, and simple. One was named Jess, Jess, B, period, Simple, Semple. That was a fictionalized character. I didn't bring any of his work because the stories are so long, but he did publish them in papers, and I just read that by the time he got to the late 50s, 60s, people started to criticize him. I was like, when are you going to put that character away? We've grown past that. So he wrote back in the New York Times, okay, Simple is back. Simple is gone, but Langston Hughes is back. Simple has just moved out to the suburbs, and he didn't bring out that character anymore. Another character, her name is Alberta Kay, Madam Alberta Kay. And I have 2 poems by her, about her. And as I said, these are fictionalized composite characters. Madam's Past History. This was published in the 1940s. My name is Johnson, Madam Alberta Kay. The Madam stands for business. I'm smart that way. I had a hairdressing parlor before the Depression put the prices low. Then I had a barbecue stand till I got mixed up with that no good man. Because I had an insurance. WPA said, we can't use you, wealthy that way. I said, don't worry about me. Just like the song, you WPA folks take care of yourself and I'll get along. I do cooking, day's work too. Alberta K. Johnson, Madam to you. One more is Madam and the Wrong Visitor. A man knocked 3 times. I had never seen him before. He said, are you Madam? I said, what's the score? He said, I reckon you don't know my name, but I've come to call on you just the same. I stepped back like he had a charm. He said, really, I don't mean any harm. I'm just old Death, and I thought I might come pay you a visit before night. He said, you're Johnson, Madam Alberta Kay? I said, yes, but Alberta ain't going with you today. No sooner had I told him than I awoke. The doctor said, Madam, your fever's broke. Nurse, put her on a diet and buy her some chicken. I said, you better buy 2 because I'm still here kicking. As an observer of life, I'll read another poem, Freedom Train. In 1947 and 49, there was a Freedom Train. There's been 2 Freedom Trains. In 1976, plugged to the Fort Museum of Art, because we have a bicentennial exhibit up right now. There's some images from the Freedom Train. Langston Hughes wrote about the first Freedom Train, in which they had an original version of the let me make sure I get this right. Original version of the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, and the Bill of Rights traveled throughout the country to 300 cities and 48 states. So this is something very different for people who could not get to Washington, D.C. It's We didn't have that sense of, oh, let's travel to Washington to see our culture and our country and our history. That didn't happen, but the Freedom Train went out. And think of what it was like in 1947, 1949. Most people really didn't have that much money, and they pretty much stayed tied to one route. So here's the idea of taking information out to the public. But this is what Langston Hughes thought from the perspective of being in the South, of the Freedom Train. I read in the papers about the Freedom Train. I heard on the radio about the Freedom Train. Lord, I've been waiting for the Freedom Train. Washington, Richmond, Durham, Chattanooga, Atlanta, Waycross, Georgia. Lord, Lord, Lord. Way down in Dixie, the only trains I see got a Jim Crow coach set aside for me. I hope there ain't no Jim Crow on the Freedom Train. No backdoor entrance to the Freedom Train. No sign for color on the Freedom Train. No white folks only on the Freedom Train. I'm going to check up. I'm going to check up on this Freedom Train. Who's the engineer on the Freedom Train? Can a cold black man drive the Freedom Train? Or am I still a porter on the Freedom Train? Is there ballot boxes on the Freedom Train? Do colored folks vote on the Freedom Train? When it stops in Mississippi, will it be made plain? Everybody's got a right to board the Freedom Train. I'm going to check up. I'm going to check up on this Freedom Train. The Birmingham station's marked colored and white. White folks go left, colored go right. They even got a segregated lane. Is that the way to get on board the Freedom Train? I'm going to check up. I'm going to check up on this Freedom Train. If my children ask me, Daddy, please explain, why is a Jim Crow station for the Freedom Train? What shall I tell my children? You tell me, because freedom ain't freedom when a man ain't free. My brother's named Jimmy. He died in Anzio. He died for real, and it wasn't no show. Is this here freedom on the Freedom Train really freedom, or just a show again? Now let the Freedom Train come zooming down the track, gleaming in the sunlight for white and black. Not stopping at no stations marked colored nor white, just stopping in the fields in the broad daylight. Stopping in the country in the wide open air, where there never was a Jim Crow sign nowhere. No lily white committees, politicians of note, no poor tax layer through which the colored can't vote. There won't be no kind of colored lines. The Freedom Train will be yours and mine. Then maybe from their graves in Anzio, black men and white men will say, we want it so. Black man and white will say, ain't it fine? At home, they got a Freedom Train. A Freedom Train that's yours and mine.